Welcome. Welcome, students. Welcome, alumni and friends. Welcome, faculty and staff. And welcome to you, Robert Smith, and to your family. Thank you all for making this a brighter day. Thank you for being here for a special day for our school, the School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, the Robert Frederick Smith School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. Today we gather to celebrate the exceptional generosity of Robert Smith, to celebrate the vote of confidence that he has cast in our favor, to celebrate the strength in mentorship, in leadership, in scholarship, in friendship of our school, the College of Engineering, and Cornell University. Strength that Robert experienced as a student not so many years ago. Strength that mentors like Professor Ray Thorpe exemplified and demanded of students like Robert Smith. The strengths that Robert Smith has seen fit to invest in so substantially. We're also here to celebrate together, to be festive together for a special moment, for a school that honestly is better known for its problem sets than for its parties. But we're also here to contemplate challenges that Robert Smith has placed before each of us, before our school and Cornell, and even our nation. Robert recognizes that diversity is strength and that Cornell could be stronger. He recognizes that privileged programs like ours are not accessible or even visible to important parts of our population. He recognizes that we must look beyond the walls of our ivory tower, back to the times before the admissions process begins, before the faculty interviews, to ask how we got here so that we can help find ways to make our successful trajectories more accessible for others. In this hour, we'll hear from 5 talented, courageous Smith School engineers. They'll tell us their stories of how they got here and of their accomplishments along the way. With these powerful stories and this day of celebration, we're launching into a new era for the Smith School. An era supported by Robert Frederick Smith, an era inspired by Robert Frederick Smith. Thank you, Robert. Thank you all. Enjoy these presentations. And now, please welcome Professor Christopher Alabi for our first presentation.
Why not me? It's a very simple question, yet quite powerful. Actually, rather than a question, it's a statement of confidence. Why not me? It's one that's typically sown in us as young kids and nurtured over many years by the mentors in our lives. Now, for me, my world and my mentorship has always been wrapped around molecules. Small molecules, large molecules, synthetic molecules, biological molecules, you name it, I love them. In fact, I go as far as calling myself a molecular junkie. Take this molecule here, for example. This is called thalidomide, and it can exist in 2 forms. So who here can tell me what those 2 forms are? This goes back to your organic chemistry. Robert. This molecule can exist in two forms, the R form and the S form. See, the R form is the molecule on the right. You know that? Robert for R. Half of that molecule is sticking out of the page. And that molecule is a therapeutic that is used to treat insomnia, morning sickness, multiple myeloma, and different kinds of cancers. Now, the molecule on the left, which is called the S form, has half of that molecule sticking into the page. That molecule causes severe birth defects, and it's killed over 10,000 people. See, really subtle changes in molecules and the way atoms are arranged and placed in three-dimensional space can have profound impacts on the way a molecule acts in terms of making a therapeutic or having it be a deadly toxin. And I've always been fascinated about molecules, how to rearrange these atoms, how to connect them, make new bonds. And I've done that by asking the questions why that researchers always ask. Why does this molecule do this? Why doesn't it do that? Why is that atom placed in that particular position? But when it came down to the fundamental question, the really important question of why not me, that's one that I didn't have the confidence to really ask until quite recently. So when I was an undergraduate student in the lab of David Schuster at NYU, I was actually involved in making this molecule on your left. It's called a phenylated S-triazine. It looks rather complicated. But again, I got to synthesize this. And the whole point of this molecule is that you can shine light on it, similar to how you shine light on a plant. And what you get is electron transfer from the triazine molecule to the molecule on the left called a buckyball, a fullerene molecule. And you can get electron transfer over and over again and create what we call a charge-separated state and store energy in these molecules, similar to how you store energy in the leaf of a plant by photosynthesis. When I found out you could do this on the molecular scale, I was hooked. That was my hook into the molecular world, right? And I worked in the lab tirelessly with really smart individuals. Sean Vail, Sean McMahon, Curly. These were the graduate students and the postdoctoral students in the lab that I worked with. And they helped me answer those questions, or at least ask those questions that I alluded to before. Why not this triazine? Why can't we move that phenyl group to a different position? What will that molecule do? So naturally, with all those why questions, I decided, well, I should go to graduate school. So I sat down with my advisor, David Schuster, told him I wanted to apply to graduate school. He said, well, what places do you want to apply to? I listed a number of schools. He looks me straight in the eye and said, you should apply to Caltech. I laughed. I just never thought it was possible. Just never came in my realm of reality. See, I was double major in chemistry and chemical engineering at the time. I was a summa cum laude. I had near-perfect GRE scores. I had a paper on the way. Still, I didn't think it was possible for me. Right? But luckily for me, the mentor in my life, David, and many others, believed in me, gave me that confidence to start to ask that question, why not me? Now, 3 or 4 years later, in my PhD program at Caltech, I got to work on a really cool molecule, another one. So this is called a cyclodextrin diamine polymer. It's a short polymer that is used for drug delivery. That molecule, that big one in the middle right there, is called a cyclodextrin molecule. It's essentially just a sugar bowl is what I call it, right? It's 7 sugars all in a ring tied together. Inside of that sugar bowl hates water, so it's hydrophobic. Outside of it loves water, so it's hydrophilic. And this polymer does amazing things, right? So you can put this polymer in a solution. It can complex another negatively charged drug. Okay, not so surprising, plus and minus. But then you get 10,000 of these guys coming together to give you what we call a nanoparticle. We can then dress the surface of that nanoparticle with proteins, direct it to a diseased cell. It gets into your cell, unravels, releases the drug. The drug stops the production of a bad protein, curing disease. We engineers, we designed it. We built it. We tested it in mice and in humans, and it works. It's pretty remarkable. And I got to do this in the lab of Mark Davis. And now I told you, when I did this, it wasn't pure luck. I wasn't just put on this project, right? I toiled in the lab day in and day out. Night was day, day was night. My weekends were non-existent, except for many, many failed experiments. And I'm sure a lot of you in the audience can resonate with that message. And if you can, I'm sure there are a lot of folks in my lab who have many of those failed experiments, right? But I invested in my craft over and over again, and my advisor, Mark Davis, invested in me. He gave me that confidence, right? That belief to ask that question, why not me? Right? And this didn't happen in just one sit-down conversation. This happened over many years of strong mentorship, right? Exposing me to the research community, sending me out to conferences, exposing me to the grant writing process. But most importantly, talking to me as an equal, talking to me as a colleague. That bolstered my confidence. That made me believe that I could do anything, that I was just as good as anyone else. That's what strong mentors do. So, these two mentors in my lab, David Schuster and Mark Davis, led me to the lab of another amazing scientist and mentor, Bob Langer. His picture is shown there on the right. Now, Bob Langer, he's a scientist and entrepreneur extraordinaire. I mean, this man embodies the word innovation. So just a little history about him. He actually graduated from this department. He's an alumnus of ChemE in 1970. He went over to MIT to get his PhD from Clark Colton, who was also an alumnus of this department, 1964. He then went on to Boston Children's Hospital to get his postdoctoral degree from Judy Folkman, and then started at MIT, not in the chemical engineering department. He actually started in the nutritional sciences department. So Bob Langer has started over 25 different companies. He holds over 1,000 patents, licensed to over 300 companies. He's won over 220 major awards. That's remarkable. But one stat that most people often leave out is that he has mentored over 1,000 students. And yes, I did count. And these are graduate students and postdoctoral researchers, not even counting undergraduate students. Many of those walked into his lab like I did, just in awe with the lab, but all walking out as accomplished scientists, drug delivery experts, and in some cases, entrepreneurs. See, in Bob's lab, I ran into this funny intersection of scientific purity and relevance. I met a lot of really good scientists in the lab who believed that science was a tool and a vessel not just to satisfy one's curiosity, but a tool in order to do good and help the community, right? From making drug delivery vesicles and systems to deliver drugs to a specific site, or even making really simple things like hair products, no frizz, sold by a company, Live and Proof, one of Bob's company, made by one of the polymers that we actually discovered in that lab. So again, we all walked into his lab with our eyes wide open in awe, but we all left with the confidence to ask that question, why not me? I like to tell people we left that lab with a lot of swagger. So long before these three amazing mentors, there were these two amazing rocks in my life, my mom and dad. Right? They set the fire in me early on about the importance of education. Education is the key to success. Education will set you free. Education is liberation. This is something my dad would always tell me, except he'll do it in a really deep Nigerian voice, which you can't mess with, you can't ignore. Right? So my parents loved me, as all parents do to their children, but they believed in me. Right? And they put their money where their heart was. Similar to another amazing guy sitting here in the audience today. Because there are many children in this country, the United States, that don't have the same opportunities that I did as a child growing up in Nigeria. So my mom and my dad and the three amazing mentors in my life were the seeds that actually led me here to Cornell. But it was really the amazing mentors that currently exist here. Susan Daniel, Paulette Clancy, Matt DeLisa, Lyndon Archer, Mike Duncan, and many others that cemented that opportunity that actually brought me here. These amazing group of mentors welcomed my family, Sarah, my wife, Benjamin and Jordan, my two kids, here to Ithaca and Cornell, a place we all now call home. Now, Cornell is an amazing place, as you all know, and it welcomes a diverse array of students. So this is the 2016 class of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. But the total 2016 class of about 3,000 students actually consisted of about 21% underrepresented minorities, with a 2-to-1 split of Hispanics to African Americans. About 10% of that class were international students. Another 17% were Asian Americans. And again, 100 of that total 3,000 body of students are shown here. They declared chemical and biomolecular engineering as their major. I was fortunate to actually advise about 20 of these kids, and I'll tell you a story about just one of them. Let's call him Don, for the sake of anonymity. So I had my advising hours every Friday afternoons, 3 o'clock, and Don would always show up. Every single Friday, he would always be there. We would talk about classes, jobs, and sometimes we would just chat, because sometimes that's what he needed. But Don wasn't on top of his class. He wasn't in the middle of his class either, and he struggled to keep his grades up. But he stuck with it. And at a time in the mid-spring, he came to my office, and he would come often, as I said, but he was worried because he didn't have a job, at a time when most of his colleagues had multiple offers in the fall and in the spring as well. But I would always give him different pieces of advice, and I'm not sure he really took them. But I'd tell him, look, you're all getting the same chemical engineering degree, but you have to pull your personal strengths and impress upon your employers why you were special. What about your degree and your personal experience sets you apart? Again, I don't know if he ever listened to me. But 2 weeks later, late spring, came into my office with a big smile on his face. He got a job with actually a big firm in New Jersey, and I was extremely proud. It was great to share in his success, even more so than many of the kids that I advised that went to top graduate programs. And see, I just hope that somewhere in those Friday afternoon sessions, he found his footing. He found the confidence to stand up and ask that question. Why not me? So now I run my own lab here, and we don't make phenylated estrizines. We don't make sugar bowls. We make what we call oligothioetheramides. We have full control over sequence and composition, right? We can put atoms and molecules where we want, and we try to use this to create drug delivery systems and even create drug in and of themselves. We work on molecules that can be used as antibiotics. And we've even gone as far as to creating our own logo. That's how bold we are. This is done by 2 students in my group, Josh Walker and Michelle Sorkin, sitting back there in the audience. So I joke with people, I have 2 kids at home and I have 10 kids in the lab. I do see them as my kids. And I just hope that along this progression, I can give to them the same level of mentorship that my mentors gave me, to give them the knowledge and the confidence to stand up and also one day ask that question, why not me? So in preparation for these remarks today, a colleague of mine sent me a link to a page with Cornell's firsts, essentially highlighting areas where Cornell has taken the lead. And I'll read the statement to you. It says, in a letter dated February 17, 1867, Ezra Cornell stated that he wanted to have girls educated in the same university as well as boys, so that they could have the same opportunities. And in 1874, Andrew Dixon White affirmed that the university would accept students of color, even if the 500 enrolled white students asked for dismissal on this account. See, I knew I chose the right place to be. I always knew that. But after reading this, I was even prouder to be at a place that was founded by such visionary thinkers. And I think with this amazing gift that we now have an exponentially expanded opportunity to really fulfill Ezra and Andrew White's desire of founding an institution where truly any student can find instruction in any study. And for those kids out there, many of those kids out there who didn't or who don't have the rocks that I had in my life for parents, or who don't have the mentors that I had in my life, they all have a champion in you, Robert Smith. They all now have the opportunity, and hopefully will one day have that confidence to stand up and say, why not me? Thank you.
Imagine a world filled with chaos. A world that refuses to be tamed. A world where entropy reigns over all else. Well, this is our world, but on a much smaller scale, on the scale of an angstrom, where molecules are continuously in motion and are constantly bombarding each other. This is molecular chaos. Now in this world, the goal is to find order. Order that makes things work. Order that's the responsibility of a chemical engineer. But this is no easy feat, because this is a battle against a sacred law, the second law of thermodynamics. It's a battle against entropy. Is this a battle that we can win? In many ways, this battle is similar to life. I'd now like to take you on a journey. I remember crystal clear water washing onto the shores of white sandy beaches. This is my very first memory from the time I lived on the island of Carriacou, a small island territory belonging to Grenada. Carriacou, which is named for its many reefs, is home to only 6,000 people. But not long after this time of tranquility came a moment to make important decisions. Decisions that we don't make in the United States until the age of 18 or later. I was forced to make these decisions only at the age of 12. I was still an adventurous, goofy kid, not ready for that. I was forced to answer questions such as, would I leave the comfort of my home and family in Carriacou to attend a better high school in Grenada? What career path was I going to take? Would I study science or business? This was a moment of a lot of inner turmoil for me. And I remember wondering, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I fail? Would I be a failure for the rest of my life? Well, in that moment, I made one important decision. I decided to attend high school in Grenada. And on my very first day, I was told there was going to be a hurricane. But not just any hurricane, a Category 4 hurricane, Ivan. I was excited. Never before had I experienced a hurricane. My sense of adventure was taking over. But the next morning, when the winds rolled in, I quickly regretted that decision. I watched as Ivan's tornadoes descended and ravaged my country. I saw houses destroyed and hillsides cleared of trees in an instant. I even saw people who dared to venture out be blown away by the wind. I was scared like never before. But in the middle of the storm came a moment of silence. The wind was so still, it was unimaginable. I questioned whether that moment of beautiful calm was real. Nature had turned chaos into calm. But not long after, the winds rolled in again. And in that cascade of chaos and calm, it came to me. There was a role for me. I wanted to tame chaos. I wanted to be an engineer. See, however, in Grenada, this was not a typical decision, because although it's much larger than Carriacou, it's home to only 100,000 people. That means there's only a couple career paths that people aspire to go into. That include becoming a lawyer, a doctor, or a politician. I remember my mom telling me as a kid, you're going to be a doctor someday. And now I joke with her saying, look, Mom, I'm becoming a doctor of chemical engineering. That was not at all what she meant. So I was dedicated to being an engineer. I remember taking a high school physics class where I learned about semiconductors, these tiny devices that could turn things on and off. And they revolutionized computing as well as photovoltaics. I was hooked. So I knew I wanted to study photovoltaics, semiconductors, and I knew I wanted to be an engineer. But I wasn't sure what type of engineer I wanted to be. So later in high school, I met with an older relative, and he said, Hugh, be a chemical engineer. They're engineers of molecules. And it just felt right. So I followed this trajectory, which has led me here today, at the Robert Frederick Smith School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at Cornell University. Here I've come to train as a tamer of molecules, under a master tamer of molecules, Jim Engstrom. We constantly defy entropy on a daily basis in this lab. We use many tools to defy entropy, and one tool that stands out is the molecular beam. The molecular beam pulls chaos out of gas molecules and sends these particles along a particular trajectory. And from that, we're able to create really well-ordered materials that have fascinating properties, such as high electron mobility, high carrier mobility, direct band gap, and the list goes on and on. One such group of materials are called transitional metal dichalcogenides, a group of materials that I have had the pleasure of working with. I currently study these materials at the Cornell High Energy Synchrotron Source, where I study them with X-rays. You see, these materials have the future of becoming semiconductors. That means smaller and faster computers, flexible electronics, or photovoltaics. But not only are we defying entropy on a daily basis, we are also ensuring the continuation of one of computing's most famous laws, Moore's law. This comes especially at a time when many critics exclaim that Moore's law is dead. As a boy, I thought that the world was calm and peaceful. But I quickly realized that it was quite chaotic and complicated. But through this chaos, we can find order and beauty and solve problems while doing that. Thank you.
How did she get here? It's not where she thought she'd end up. But then again, where has someone who has moved 12 times between 8 states and 2 countries think that she'd end up? Columbia University was not the worst place to be. It was a fine institution to study creative writing and political science. That's what her teacher said she should do, and that's what her guidance counselor recommended she major in. Her friends said that she was a great storyteller, and she was. Did she like writing stories? Absolutely. But did she dream of majoring in creative writing? Not really. But why go to school and spend thousands of dollars on an education in something that you're not good at? You see, she dreamed of studying the stars. She had just relocated from the middle of nowhere, where stargazing was a pastime. But on a clear night in Manhattan, she could see 4, maybe 5 stars. She really began to miss the stars. So she frequented open houses at the observatory, went to Hayden Planetarium more than a few times, and checked out quite a few books on deep space. Her love of the cosmos reminded her of a childhood dream that had long been extinguished in favor of more realistic career aspirations. She wanted to join the Air Force like her mom and dad. She wanted to become a pilot, and then use that as leverage to become a NASA astronaut. Okay, so she had a tendency to dream big, and her head was always in the clouds. But she realized that creative writing was not the end game. Storytelling would always be with her, but as for majoring in it, that was just a brief stop in life, like on a local 1 train or something. She wanted to study astronomy, but a teacher reminded her that she wasn't that good in math. But she insisted. She said, no, I want to study something that I'm interested in, not necessarily something that I'm good at. Fine, said the teacher, if you insist, but you're not always going to want to be an astronomer or an astronaut, so you should pick something more reasonable, like chemistry or physics. She did her one better, and she graduated with a degree in chemical physics. She used that as proof of a technical education worthy enough to get into Cornell engineering. She couldn't forego the opportunity to study at the Cornell High Energy Synchrotron Source or the Cornell Center for Materials Research. She couldn't pass up that opportunity to study awesome research with some of the finest minds in academia. So she applied. Now, getting into Cornell chemical engineering, that was a bit of a moonshot, but she was kind of into those things. About 2-3 years into graduate school, she thought that her dreams of studying the universe were over. She was also getting too old to join the military, couldn't see well enough to fly. But childhood dreams are resilient. You see, she would end up studying the universe, just not the cosmos. When she began her dissertation in electron microscopy under Professor Leonard Korkoutis, the universe that was the cosmos ended up becoming the universe in the uncharted territory of a cell. The unknowns in biology, they make the cosmos seem well-defined. It's the reason why we don't yet have a cure to cancer, why some diseases are resistant to drugs, and why we have yet to cure all epidemics. The basic unit of life, the cell, is far more complex than we once realized. But now that we have high imaging techniques such as electron microscopy, we can probe the nanoscale structure of features in the cell that we didn't even know was there. And that opens up the door for so many more opportunities, such as how can we bioengineer the cell for the common good. You see, her universe is single-cell protozoa, cells that have presumably little internal structure. But of course, now that we can see it in high resolution, we know that's just not the case. So take, for instance, this purple photosynthetic bacteria, Rhodobacter sporidus. The purple spheres are chromatophores, the way that they undergo photosynthesis. And currently, they're being used as templates for biorenewable technologies. So essentially, we're trying to emulate what we see in nature to create a better planet by design. But first, we have to understand the structure of what we seek to template. So not only do we see that there's some structure here, but it's actually quite diverse and really interesting. For instance, the chromatophores, they have over 300 protein and pigment complexes that act in concert to undergo photosynthesis. I mean, think about how awesome this is. There's hundreds of these chromatophores. There's thousands of protein pigment complexes, and there's hundreds of thousands of lipids that make up the membranes of this bacteria. But for me, there are so many more reasons to be in awe at something so small. To her, it was the same awe she had when looking through a telescope at the big red spot in Jupiter, or the rings of Saturn. To her, it was the excitement she felt when she started probing the unknown universe of the biological world. It's not where she thought she'd end up. But then again, where would someone who's changed academic disciplines 4 times think that she'd end up? And most importantly, where am I going from here? Thank you.
I am Robert Frederick Smith. Okay, I got everyone's attention. Okay, but seriously though, let me explain why I, in a way, am Robert Frederick Smith. I'm sure many of you did the same, but I also Googled him. And the more that I read about his perseverance to get his first internship in high school with Bell Labs, to his career with Kraft, then Goldman Sachs, and then founding Vista Equity, the more I began to draw parallels between us. I realized that our stories of how we became successful were a lot alike. My name is actually Elisa Restaro, and I'm a senior here in the chemical engineering department. I, like Mr. Smith, have faced several obstacles and transformative moments to get to where I am today. With perseverance and hard work ethic, I've transformed from a shy introvert who barely knew what a chemical engineer did, to someone who's graduating in the top 20% of her class, ready to enter the corporate world and show them exactly what a Cornell chemie can do. So my story actually starts in the 6th grade with a science fair. Just as Mr. Smith once read all he could about operational amplifiers at his first internship, I did the same with science fair topics, until I found the one: the effect of ethylene gas on fruits. And so every day, before and after school, I'd run out in the hot Miami sun, and I would, take these measurements, take pictures, and record my observations. And soon came time to present at the regional science fair. And let me tell you something about myself. I was one shy kid. I mean, I nearly had a panic attack just moments before the science fair judges came out. But the joy and the pride that I felt in presenting my findings and my hard work was like no other. And that's the moment I fell in love with the sciences. And I can promise you right now that 6th grade me could not even fathom the amount of advanced courses or even the corporate world she'd enter in just 10 years. And so began my journey through the sciences and, making my way to college. And we all know what that consists of, right? Honors classes with 1 AP class quickly turns into 4 AP classes with college-level credit courses. A 7-hour school day with 1 hour of homework turns into a 15-hour school day with 4 hours of homework a night, running from classes to night labs to tennis to the local hospital where I volunteered to heading student government, failing the SAT twice because of terrible test anxiety. Questions of, am I good enough? And will I even make it to college trying to take me down? 10 college applications, 15 essays, several interviews, hundreds of questions to answer. But somehow, with a few prayers and the help of my family, friends, and mentors, I landed here at Cornell and at the chemie department. But the whirlwind did not stop. I mean, I nearly failed Duncan's intro to chemie class, and I was so homesick the first semester, I wondered every single day if I should just drop out. But then later that year, I joined ChemiCar and we won regionals. But then I got rejected from every single internship I applied for a sophomore year. But like Mr. Smith, I didn't give up. I raised my grades, my GPA, and I reapplied to the same companies through the co-op program. And with a little persistence, I got an offer from Kraft. And while I was there, I made the most of it. I tirelessly poured after book about the liquid cheese process. I challenged the status quo, and I asked if we could optimize a process instead of a product. I remember one day in particular, I ran 9 different batches to produce 540 pounds of molten liquid cheese sauce. I'm not even kidding. That stuff was like in my hair, on my lab coat, on my steel-toed boots. But I knew in the moment that this was it. This was a culmination of everything I had worked so hard to achieve. And when it came time to present my findings to the vice presidents of the department, gone was that girl that nearly passed out in front of the science fair judges, and there stood a woman confidently dressed in her business clothes, walking these high-level executives through her findings, her conclusions, and her recommendations for their company moving forward. You see, it is that very perseverance, hard work, ethic, and mental capability that Cornell and the Chemie department has fostered in me. I've survived countless problem sets, failed prelims, rejections, acceptances, and through late nights in the undergrad lounge with classmates that turned into family. You see, I've come a long way since that science fair project 10 years ago. And I could not be more grateful for what Cornell and the Chemie department has done for me. So yeah, I do see myself in Robert Frederick Smith. But I'm also Elisa Mayristaro. Thank you.
Imagine yourself winning the lottery. My grandmother won the lottery in Colombia, and the first thing she did was pack her bags and move into a basement in Queens. After 20 long years of 16-hour shifts, she was finally able to call her children over. And of course, this included me. My mother, one of 2 women in her graduating class of 180 civil engineers, had already completed her career. She, for God's sakes, her taxi to work was a personalized helicopter ride. And she knew that when she came to the United States, her degree would not be validated. She, like her mother before her, had bargained her success for mine and took the leap of faith. Now, while 7 of us were huddled in a 1-bedroom apartment in New York, my mother worked during the day, studied at night, and still found time to raise me. In 2007, she finally graduated with her engineering degree again. And soon after, I would start my engineering journey, except that I'd do it here, in the dorm on North Campus. Luckily. Now, when I came here, the lack of preparation was all too obvious. In high school, 30 minutes a day of studying was overkill. A joke when I came here. When I took my first Cornell calculus exam, I cried so hard. I called my mom, and through tears, I said, "Ma, I can't do it." I was ready to quit. My mom said no. She pushed me and she said, "Look at what you have." And I looked back on what my mother went through, what my grandmother went through, and I said no. Now, thankfully, around this time, I found something else, and its name was Yamatai. Listening to those drums, the fire inside. Wow, thanks. Thank you. Listening to that, the fire inside of me was lit. Oh my God, the player performers, they had the strength, the endurance, the power. That was the physical embodiment of who I wanted to be. Obviously, I had to try out. And of course, I went in, and Yamatai did not accept me. A full year went by, and I was still disillusioned. I didn't know what to do, but as the semester started, I looked back and I got tough. And of course, I tried out again, and this time I made it. But even though I had made that step to improve my confidence, I still lacked direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I felt like a ball being tossed around. So, as I saw that all my friends in chemi were capably swimming afloat and I was drowning in a sea of chemi, I eventually came across Rosanna Zia. And she taught me, of course, fluid mechanics, as many others as well know. And she opened the doors to research for me. She was the one who showed me what I could do. And as I was finding my way, I was also learning how to code for complex fluids. Now, the 2 red probes there, that wasn't me. That was my grandmother and my mother. But I was finally there. And as I was finding my way, I landed myself in my second lab with Gerald Feigenson. And with Gerald Feigenson, I worked with lipids. And as my lipids were finding order, so was I. I could see myself finally intermingling chemi with biochemistry, and also fixing out and separating my academics from the rest of my life. See, the thing is, my mother and my grandmother were strong women, but Cornell Chemie has made me a strong woman as well. No longer did I have to go between rhythms, but I have finally found my own beat. So. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking all of our speakers, Christopher Olabi, Hugh Bullen, Jade Nobel, Alyssa Restoro, and Paula Torres. So, our celebration is far from over. Please join us in the Grouse Atrium for first a reception, and then at 4:15, President Rawlings and Dean Collins will lead us into the dedication ceremony for the Robert Frederick Smith School. A note, students, as you leave, please pick up a t-shirt, I believe on the right, prepare for a photo. Thank you all.